The world was never built on fairness. And every second you cling to that illusion, you hand away your power. Right now, at this very moment, someone with half your intelligence is being celebrated. Someone with weaker hands than yours is pulling the strings. Someone with fewer talents is living the life you ache for, simply because they understand a truth you were never taught. The dark psychology of human nature. You were trained to obey rules that the powerful shattered centuries ago. Programmed to be polite while others were learning strategy. Conditioned to wait for respect while others reached out and seized it. The game isn't broken. The game is working exactly as it was designed, against the naive, the hopeful, the well-intentioned. Against those who still believe virtue alone will protect them. 500 years ago, Niccolo Machiavelli stripped the mask off humanity and revealed the machinery of power. And here's the haunting part, the same ruthless. Mechanics still decide who rises and who is left behind. This isn't just political theory. This is your daily life. Every moment you hesitate, every time you swallow your truth to keep the peace, every time you give more than you take, you feed someone else's empire. You may call it fairness. They call it an opportunity. Machiavelli wasn't celebrating cruelty. He was documenting survival. He watched rulers fall because they clung to ideals, while their rivals wielded reality like a blade. His message was not to abandon morality entirely, but to stop worshiping it blindly. Because morality without strategy is martyrdom. And if you're honest, you felt this tension within yourself. That uneasy voice whispering when you stay late at work, but the credit goes to someone else. That sinking feeling when your kindness becomes expectation, not gratitude. That quiet rage when you realize the rules you followed so carefully were never followed by the ones above you. The question is not whether fairness matters. It does. The question is, when will you stop confusing fairness with survival? Fairness is often painted as the highest virtue, something that makes us civilized, moral, human. But here's the trap. Fairness assumes a level playing field. It assumes everyone else is as committed to honesty, reciprocity, and decency as you are. And that assumption is what destroys you. Think of fairness like a handshake. It only works if both people extend their hands. If one person reaches, while the other hides a dagger behind their back, the handshake becomes a setup for betrayal. You didn't enter a fair agreement. You entered a trap. Psychologists call this the just world fallacy, the belief that life naturally rewards good people and punishes bad ones. But reality mocks this idea. The world is filled with kind, hardworking individuals who never rise, while cunning opportunists thrive. Nietzsche warned of this when he wrote that morality is often a tool of the weak to restrain the strong. What he meant was not that morality is useless, but that it can be weaponized, used by those in power to keep you docile while they act without constraint. Consider the workplace. You may think, if I work hard, recognition will follow. But time and again, the promotions go to those who understand office politics, not just labor. They align themselves with decision makers. They play alliances like chess pieces. And the quiet, diligent worker who waits for fairness? They're invisible. Look at history. Socrates was executed for corrupting the youth, not because he was guilty, but because he disrupted the system. Joan of Arc was burned at the stake, not because she lacked virtue, but because her existence threatened powerful men. In both cases, fairness failed. So when you cling to fairness, you cling to fragility. You position yourself as prey in a world of predators. You think the rules are nets that protect you, when in fact they are cages designed to contain you. Fairness is not your shield. It is your blindfold. You weren't born obedient. You were trained to be. From childhood, you were rewarded for sitting quietly, punished for defiance, praised for sharing even when you didn't want to. Slowly, obedience was etched into your nervous system, not because it made you powerful, but because it made you manageable. Psychologist Stanley Milgram revealed this dark truth in his infamous obedience experiments. Ordinary people, instructed by authority, were willing to administer what they believed were lethal electric shocks to strangers. They weren't sadists. They were simply conditioned to obey, conditioned to trust authority over their own moral compass. Now think about your life. How many times have you nodded yes when your whole body screamed no? How many times have you stayed silent because speaking up felt dangerous, even if silence was betrayal of yourself? That is the weight of conditioning. It teaches you to fear disobedience more than injustice. The danger is subtle. Obedience feels safe. It wins you approval. It reduces conflict. But over time, it becomes a leash you hold against your own throat. You confuse politeness with goodness, compliance with wisdom, fairness with survival. Machiavelli saw through this illusion. He argued that a ruler cannot afford blind obedience, not to others and not to ideals. Power comes not from following rules, but from knowing when to break them. It is better to be feared than loved, he wrote, not because fear is morally superior, but because it is more reliable. This is the uncomfortable mirror. While you obey, others calculate. While you hope for fairness, others plan their advantage. And by the time you realize the rules were never equal, you're already behind. Obedience, left unchecked, turns you into a background character in your own life. A silent actor, waiting for permission to matter. And those who give themselves permission first, they write the script that defines you. Machiavelli's genius lay not in cruelty, but in clarity. He studied power without illusions, stripped of moral decoration. And in his most famous metaphor, he gave us the blueprint. To survive, a leader must be both lion and fox. The lion represents strength, boldness, the ability to strike fear in enemies, to protect against wolves. But lions, for all their power, are easily trapped. Their strength blinds them to subtlety. The fox, on the other hand, survives by cunning, by deception, by slipping through snares that would capture a lion. Alone, each is vulnerable. Together, they are invincible. Now think, in your own life, which have you been? The lion, standing strong, but predictable? Or the fox, clever, but too cautious to wield strength? Most people are neither. They live like sheep, too meek to fight, too naive to deceive. Machiavelli's lesson was not about politics alone. It was about survival in human systems, families, companies, nations. You cannot be only fair, because fairness is neither lion nor fox. It is a costumed sheep, whereas they wait for slaughter. History shows this pattern clearly. Julius Caesar marched on Rome with the heart of a lion, but secured loyalty through the cunning of a fox. Napoleon rose not just through military power, but by reshaping narratives and bending perception. In modern times, corporations play this dual game, projecting fairness publicly, while ruthlessly cutting deals behind closed doors. The haunting truth is this: to thrive, you must learn duality. To smile while calculating. To appear virtuous while remaining strategic. This is not hypocrisy, it is survival. Plato once warned that appearances govern society more than truth. Machiavelli simply pushed that to its logical conclusion. The question is not whether you should be fair. The question is, when must you become a lion? When must you become a fox? And when must you shed the sheep's clothing entirely? History is not written by the fair. It is written by the victorious. And victory has always demanded more than goodness. It required calculation, deception, and, yes, ruthlessness. Consider Alexander the Great. He didn't conquer half the known world by playing fairly. He absorbed cultures, manipulated allegiances, and used fear as a unifying weapon. Or look at the Medici family in Florence, the very patrons of Machiavelli. They maintained power not through kindness, but through an intricate web of favors, threats, and strategic marriages. They understood what most of us refuse to accept, that fairness is ornamental, but ruthlessness is structural. Even in modern history, the same pattern holds. Nations that preach fairness often exploit weaker ones behind the mask of diplomacy. Corporations that advertise equality often practice ruthless cost-cutting, crushing competitors without hesitation. And yet, the illusion of fairness keeps the masses pacified. They continue to believe in a system designed to serve those at the top. Machiavelli observed this in his time, but it has only become more sophisticated. The powerful cloak their ruthlessness in noble language, progress, justice, freedom, and we fall for it because we want to believe fairness rules the world. We crave that comfort, but here's the haunting lesson. Fairness is the story. Ruthlessness is the engine. And unless you learn to see beneath the story, you will always remain outside the engine room, wondering why the doors never open for you. If you want to understand Machiavelli, you don't need to study Renaissance Italy. You just need to look at your job, think about the office, the meetings, politics, Notice how often the most capable person is not the one in charge. Notice how credit is distributed, rarely to the one who works hardest, but to the one who positions themselves where the spotlight lands that you've probably been told. Keep your head down, work hard, and you'll be rewarded. But in reality, this advice keeps you invisible. Your diligence becomes expected, not praised. Meanwhile, the strategist, the one who understands relationships, timing, perception, moves ahead of you. They are not necessarily smarter or more skilled. They are simply less bound by the illusion of fairness. Psychologists describe this as the impression management trap. Those who control perception control outcomes. And perception has never been fair. A polished presentation will outshine weeks of quiet labor. A well-placed compliment to a manager will outweigh months of silent loyalty. This is not cynicism. It is observation. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The workplace is a Machiavellian stage where fairness is the script given to extras, while the leads improvise their way to the top. So you must ask yourself, are you willing to remain in the background, reciting lines that lead nowhere? Or will you step into the uncomfortable role of strategist, learning that visibility, leverage, and timing often matter more than merit? Machiavelli would remind you, virtue without cunning is wasted, and fairness, when worshipped, is just another cage that we like to believe that love is immune to power. That fairness governs intimacy. That kindness alone sustains relationships. But look closely, and you'll see Machiavelli lurking here too. How many people stay in relationships where they give endlessly, believing fairness will eventually return the balance? How many silence their needs to keep the peace, only to find resentment growing in the shadows? Fairness in relationships often disguises fear. Fear of loss, fear of conflict, fear of being alone. But here's the truth. Power dynamics shape love as much as they shape politics. The partner who sets the terms, who withholds or grants affection strategically, often controls the rhythm of the relationship. This doesn't mean love is manipulation, but it does mean that unconscious strategies are always at play. Psychologists call this interdependence theory. The one who needs less has more power. And isn't that a Machiavellian lesson? If you give away all your needs, all your dependence, you hand away your leverage. You hope fairness will return affection in equal measure, but hope is not strategy. Nietzsche once wrote, "There is always some madness in love, but there is always some reason for madness. The reason is power." And the healthiest relationships are not the most fair, but the most consciously balanced, where both partners acknowledge the game and choose to play it honestly, without naivety. If you want to stop being used, stop pretending fairness rules intimacy. See the currents of power, and you'll stop drowning in them. Fairness has a costume. It wears the mask of virtue. And that mask is one of the oldest tools of control. Plato warned about this in his allegory of the cave. People chained to the wall mistake shadows for truth. And so it is with virtue. We mistake appearances for reality. We believe the one who smiles must be kind. The one who preaches fairness must be just. But shadows deceive. Machiavelli knew this well. He advised rulers to appear virtuous, even if they were not, to act merciful when it served them, and ruthless when it protected them. Why? Because people judge by appearances, not reality. They crave the mask more than the truth. And here's where it becomes uncomfortable. You wear masks too. Every day, you hide anger behind politeness. You mask ambition with humility. You present fairness when what you truly feel is resentment. This doesn't make you hypocritical. It makes you human. But if you never learn to use the mask consciously, you become enslaved by it. The world rewards those who craft their masks deliberately. Politicians, influencers, leaders, all masters of performance. Meanwhile, those who cling to fairness as an absolute remain trapped, confused by why reality never matches appearances. The lesson is brutal but liberating. Morality is theater. Virtue is costume. The question is not whether you wear the mask, but whether you control it, or whether it controls you. At its core, power reduces to one unsettling binary: predator or prey. Not in the sense of cruelty or violence, but in terms of awareness. Predators calculate. Prey assumes. Most people live as prey. They assume others mean well. They assume fairness is natural. They assume intentions match words. And by assuming, they expose themselves, Predators, by contrast, do not assume, they observe. They look for patterns, weaknesses, opportunities. They anticipate betrayal. They expect self-interest and are rarely disappointed. This does not mean they lack empathy, but that they do not gamble their survival on it. Evolutionary psychology suggests this mindset is ancient. Our ancestors who anticipated the threat survived longer than those who trusted blindly. Yet modern society conditions us to suppress this instinct, replacing it with obedience and politeness. You are told suspicion is paranoia, but suspicion is simply self-defense. The unsettling truth? Some of the most charming people you know are predators wearing smiles. They test boundaries softly to see if you resist. If you don't, they escalate. The psychology of exploitation relies not on force, but on your unwillingness to admit the game is even happening. If you want to stop being prey, you must abandon the fantasy that fairness is automatic. Begin to see motives beneath words. Question: kindness. Evaluate loyalty, not with cynicism, but with clarity. Machiavelli wasn't teaching cruelty. He was teaching vigilance. The fox survives not because it is cruel, but because it refuses to live as prey. Naivete is not innocent. It is self-betrayal. It is the refusal to see the world as it is, clinging instead to how you wish it would be. And the price of this refusal is devastating. Entire lives wasted in loyalty to systems that never valued them. Families torn apart because someone believed love was always fair. Careers destroyed because workers assumed merit alone would elevate them. Bonhoeffer, the German philosopher executed for resisting the Nazis, once wrote about what he called the stupidity of good people. He argued that stupidity was more dangerous than malice because stupidity was blind. It allowed evil to thrive unchecked. In other words, naive goodness enables ruthless cruelty. Look at history. Those who refused to adapt were consumed. Monarchs who trusted too deeply were assassinated. Leaders who clung to fairness were outmaneuvered. The pattern is unbroken. Naivete is the tax the world extracts from those who refuse to awaken. And here's the personal sting. You have paid this tax, too. Every time you ignored your instincts. Every time you excused someone's betrayal because you wanted to be fair. Every time you gave more than you could afford to give, hoping it would return. That weight you carry in your chest is not failure. It is the accumulated debt of naivete. Machiavelli offers a cruel gift, the chance to stop paying. But only if you dare to see clearly. Here's where many misunderstand Machiavelli. They think he preached cruelty for cruelty's sake. But true Machiavellian strategy is not reckless brutality. It is controlled ruthlessness. Controlled ruthlessness means choosing your battles, knowing when to withhold mercy and when to extend it strategically. It means never being cruel for vanity, but always being willing to be firm when survival demands it. Think of a surgeon's scalpel. It cuts, but not out of hatred, out of necessity. The cut saves the body. Ruthlessness, when controlled, is the same. A refusal to let sentiment blind you when clarity is required. This is why Machiavelli insisted that leaders should appear merciful, but not be bound by mercy. Appear generous, but never to the point of weakness. Appear fair, but never when fairness risks destruction. The mask and the blade must work together. In your life. This means setting boundaries without guilt, ending relationships that drain you, even if it feels unfair, demanding recognition for your work, even if it disrupts harmony, speaking truths others find uncomfortable when silence would cost you more. Controlled ruthlessness is not cruelty. It is self-respect sharpened into strategy. To live by Machiavelli's lessons is not to abandon morality, but to stop worshiping it blindly. It is to replace naive fairness with strategic clarity. This doesn't mean becoming heartless. It means understanding that kindness without boundaries becomes exploitation, that generosity without calculation becomes depletion, that fairness without vigilance becomes slavery. Living the Machiavellian truth requires dual vision. You see the world's illusions, fairness, virtue, civility, for what they are, costumes. But you also see their necessity. You play the game without forgetting it's a game. You wear the mask, but you never confuse it for your face. Psychologists call this cognitive flexibility, the ability to hold multiple truths at once, to be kind and calculating, empathetic and strategic, fair when possible, ruthless when necessary. This duality is your liberation. It frees you from the despair of expecting a fair world, while still allowing you to act with integrity when it serves you. Here lies the paradox. Fairness only becomes possible after ruthlessness secures it. History proves this. Peace treaties are signed after wars, not before. Justice is established after revolutions, not during submission. Even in your life, fairness appears only once you've proven you cannot be exploited. Fairness, in other words, is not the foundation of power, it is the luxury of it. Those who demand fairness without leverage are ignored. Those who demand it with strength are respected. This is the paradox Machiavelli understood. Only the ruthless can afford to be fair. Only the strong can afford to be merciful. And only the strategy can afford to appear naive. So where does this leave you? You stand at a crossroads. You can continue to cling to fairness, hoping the world will change, hoping that virtue will be enough. Or you can awaken. You can choose to see clearly. That power is not granted, it is taken. That fairness is not guaranteed, it is negotiated. That survival is not gifted, it is strategized. This does not mean abandoning kindness. It means elevating it, choosing when it serves you, instead of bleeding yourself dry with it. It means recognizing that behind every mask of fairness lies a strategy, and deciding that you, too, will learn to wear the mask without being enslaved by it. Machiavelli stripped away the illusions. Nietzsche warned us against the morality of the herd. Plato revealed the shadows on the cave wall. And now you must decide. Will you continue to live in the shadows of fairness, or will you step into the ruthless light of truth? Because the world was never built on fairness. And every second you cling to that illusion, you hand away your power.